All right, so we're going to start out hot with an LSU Auburn game preview, game prediction. This one's tough because LSU is, coming back home, a place they haven't been very much so far this season, to start a stretch where they play 5 home games out of their last 6. And this is a sneaky good game against an Auburn team that is 3-2, coming off a bye week, played a very competitive game at Texas A&M, and they forced Georgia to go down the field and score in the final minutes of the game a couple weeks ago to beat them in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. So certainly a very battle-tested team, certainly a very tough team, but what they don't have is offense. So what that makes is this game, which LSU is favored in by 11 points, a strength versus a strength game. That's a better visual for you guys. So on this side, you got the LSU offense. That's the Tiger strength. On this side, it's Auburn's defense. LSU, the top offense in the SEC, top 3 in the country in total offense, top 10 in rushing, passing. You get the picture. But what Auburn has is that really good defense. It feels like they have a good defense every year, but especially this year. They are top 25 in both total defense and scoring defense. They've allowed about 320 yards per game, which is really good, and then about 18 points per game defensively. And it's very balanced. It's not like they're very good in the run or very good in the pass. They're good at both. They're number 30 in passing defense in the country, and they don't really give up a lot of big plays. The same was true with Missouri last week. I told you, yards per completion will tell you if you give up big plays. If it's up near 14 yards per completion, yeah, you give up a lot of deep plays. If it's down near 11, like Auburn's is, it's actually below 11, that means you just give up little dink and dunks, like 20, 15-yard gains throughout the course of the game, right? What this passing defense is susceptible to, though, is one-on-one matchups, especially in the middle of the field. I was watching the A&M and the Georgia tape, and that's how those two offenses move the ball. That's how Georgia scored the game-winning touchdown with Brock Bowers, a dart over the middle, one-on-one. And we know that Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors like to do that. Neighbors can run a slant, he can run a drag, whatever. They like to attack the middle of the defense because when you bring blitzes, like Auburn does a lot, your first look's usually to right in the middle of the field because that's where the blitzers are coming from most of the time. It's right in front of your face, right? In terms of the run defense, Auburn's a little bit weaker here. They're number 53 in the country. They allow about 4 yards per carry, 129 per game, so still very solid. And they did hold Georgia to just 107 yards on the ground. But I looked this up because I was curious about this. Georgia's not a running team this year. They're more of a passing team. So that number doesn't really scare me, make me shiver, anything like that. Georgia's the number 68 rushing offense in the country. So middle of the pack, it's not what they move the ball or what they pride themselves upon doing offensively. It's more about that pass game. And that's how Georgia beat Auburn. That's how I think LSU will have to beat Auburn, is with that passing game, because the Dogs pass for over 300 yards against this defense, again, with those one-on-one matchups winning over the middle of the field. One big key for LSU's offense in this game and Auburn's defense, red zone. Auburn's got the number 1 red zone defense in the SEC. They've only allowed 6 touchdowns on 13 trips. For comparison's sake, LSU's made it to the red zone 31 times this season. So Auburn hasn't allowed many teams to get into the red zone. Maybe that's because they've scored on long touchdowns or, whatever the case may be. But the point is, when they do get to the red zone, Auburn doesn't buckle. They force you to kick field goals. Again, 6 touchdowns on 13 trips. That's not that many. That's what? Maybe at 50%, maybe a little bit below 50%. My math's a little suspect there. So really, it's the Auburn defense against the LSU offense. And last thing on that red zone, LSU's offense is number 49 in the country in red zone offense. 22 touchdowns, 31 attempts. So they haven't necessarily been extremely efficient inside an opponent's 20-yard line. I would look for Mason Taylor to have a big game, though. I mentioned Brock Bowers. He's Georgia's tight end, but he's kind of like a wide receiver and a tight end. That's why he's a Heisman candidate right now. Mason Taylor's been a little bit quiet, but the way that Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors are attacking downfield, there might be some room for him to operate, or maybe even one-on-one matchups that favor him as those receivers go deep for those routes. So what this game really comes down to is, can LSU score? Auburn doesn't have the firepower offensively, but if you make mistakes, you turn the ball over, you allow them to eat up the clock and move the chains with their running potent offense, they can stay in this game and hang around. That's how they hung around against A&M. That's how they hung around against Georgia. So if you can just expose this defense with those same things we've been seeing, the downfield shots, but then the between the tackles and outside the tackles running with Logan Diggs, you should take care of business against this team. Auburn, if they put up 20 points, I would be surprised. All they do is run the ball. They cannot pass. Against Georgia and A&M, they passed it 43 times. They completed 20 passes for 144 yards. I mean, that's as many yards Jaden Daniels puts up in a pedestrian quarter. They cannot pass. They did surprise Georgia with Peyton Thorne, Robbie Ashford, the read options, the quarterback keeps. We hadn't really seen that from this offense before. Georgia hadn't seen it. So that kind of caught them off guard in that game. Now Auburn's had a bye week. They've had extra time to prepare, make a game plan. So you've got to play disciplined defensively if you're LSU. Your linebackers got to flow to the gaps. Your safety's got to make tackles in space. You know they're going to run the football. So keep them behind the chains, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and you'll have no problem because, again, they just cannot pass. That's all I got to say. I think there's more things I could go into, but that's really what this game comes down to. If your offense can continue to put up points against probably the best defense you've played all season long, that's the difference. In terms of who I think wins, I think LSU wins. There's no question about that. The 11-point spread is very tricky. I was leaning to take Auburn originally. I think I'm going to go with LSU, though. I think they can pull this one out and cover this 11-point spread just because of how potent this offense is and how much Auburn lacks on that side of the ball. And I'm going to ask Brian Kelly today how he plans to attack this offense and the way they run the ball. They don't really pass. I'd be curious to get that answer. I think LSU can do this, though. Back in front of the home crowd, energized. The offense has proven week after week they can put up points against mediocre defenses, against above-average defenses. This one's a stiffer test, but I think LSU is up for it.